Hello, dear students. Let's continue the course about personal efficiency or efficacy. My name is Dr. Olga Saveleva. I'm an associate professor of the Sechenov University and I'm a researcher of the Lomonosov MSU. The third lecture is about time management. We have a lot of definitions of the word time. One of them, very general. Time is the continued sequence of existence and events that occurs in an apparently irreversible succession from the past through the present into the future. We know a lot of quotes about time. We must use time as a tool, not as a coach, John Kennedy said. Time is what we want most, but what we use worst, William Penn said. Touch times never last, but touch people do, Robert Schuller. Better 3 hours too soon than a minute too late, William Shakespeare. And the time for action is now. It's never too late to do something, Antoine de Saint-Exupéry. And two more wisdoms. They always say time changes things, but you actually have to change them yourself, Andy Warhol said. And the last one, time sometimes flies like a bird, sometimes close like a snail, but a man is happiest when he doesn't even notice where it passes swiftly or slowly, said Ivan Turgenev. If we ask people how do they feel about time, we can separate all people for three groups and think which group is closer to you. People from the first group can say, I don't have enough time for all my projects. Where to get time? People from the second group have the opposite opinion. They can ask how to kill a time. I have a lot of free time. And the people from the third group can say, time doesn't exist. It doesn't matter for me. There are a lot of philosophers who wrote books about the time and different aspects of this phenomenon. I want to suggest you to read the books of Alvin Toffler, Future Shock and the Third Wave. He's an American futurist, and in his book, The Third Wave, he is dividing the civilization for three great waves. First wave, the agricultural revolution. Second wave, the industrial revolution. And the third wave, the information age. Just now beginning, we are living in the information age. And there is a diagram you can observe the development of our civilization. And of course, time is an item, an idea, changing their characteristics during their human development. Each wave or civilization phase develops its own super ideology, which explains reality and justifies its own existence. This ideology impacts all the spheres which make up a civilization phase. Technology, social patterns, informational patterns, power patterns. The Industrial Revolution took 300 years to mature. Extent of spread, having revolutionized life in Europe, North America, and some other parts of the globe. The Western Soviet Union, Japan, Hong Kong, Singapore, Taiwan, Australia, and so on. Continues to spread as many countries until now basically agricultural, scramble to build steel mills, auto plants, railroads. In all industrial civilization embassies, roughly 1 billion human beings, 1/4 the population of the globe. Industrialism was more than smoke tracks and assembly lines. It was a rich, many-sided social system that touched every aspect of human life and attacked every feature of the first wave past. It put the tractor on the farm, the typewriter in the office, the refrigerator in the kitchen. It produced the daily newspaper and the cinema, the subway. It gave us Bauhaus buildings and Barcelona chairs, sit-down strikes, vitamin pills. It universalized the wristwatch and ballot box. The Civil War was fought over who would rule the continent, farmers or industrialists. Major changes wrought by the second wave. A shift to non-renewable energy sources, coal, gas, and oil made mass production possible. A radically better distribution system, mass distribution instead of custom distribution, using railroads, highways, and canals and complex networks of jobbers, hauliers, commission agents, and manufacturers' representatives. This led to mass merchandising. Industrialization required mobility from people. This resulted in the end of the large multi-generational extended family rooted to the soil. The so-called nuclear family, father, mother, and a few children with no encumbering relatives, became the standard socially approved modern model in all industrial societies. To free workers for factory labor, key functions of the family were parceled out to new specialized institutions. Education of the child was turned over to schools. Care of the aged was turned over to poor houses or old age homes of nursing homes. As work shifted out of the fields and the home, children had to be prepared for factory life. The early mill and factory owners of industrializing England discovered, as Andrew Yu wrote in 1835, that it was nearly impossible to convert persons past the age of puberty into useful factory hands. Built on the factory model, mass education taught basic reading, writing, and arithmetic. Beneath lay an invisible or covert curriculum that was far more basic. It consisted, and still does in most industrial nations, of three courses: one in particularly, one in obedience, and one in rote, repetitive work. Factory labor demanded workers who showed up on time. It demanded workers who would take orders from a management hierarchy without questioning. And it demanded men and women prepared to slave away at machines or in offices, performing brutally repetitious operations. Mass production required giant pools of capital. To encourage investors, the concept of limited liability was introduced, and the corporation was created. In one second wave country after another, social inventors, believing the factory to be the most advanced and efficient agency for production, tried to embody its principles in other organizations as well. Schools, hospitals, prisons, government, bureaucracies, and other organizations thus took on many of the characteristics of the factory: its division of labor, its hierarchical structure, and its metallic impersonality. In other words, bureaucracy. In an agricultural society, information was simple and usually conveyed orally. Industrialization, however, required the tight coordination of work done at many locations. Hence, huge amounts of information had to be written down and then accurately and efficiently distributed. This gave rise to the postal service, to memos, to the telephone, telegraph, and two-way radio. There also arose a demand for distribution of information from one source to millions of people. Hence, mass media and mass advertising arose. The mass circulation newspaper and magazine became a standard part of life. Human life was split in two halves: production and consumption. And it's time to notice that if you don't have a strategy, you are part of someone else's strategy, Alvin Toffler said. Think about it. So, time management. Time management is the process of planning and exercising conscious control of time spent on specific activities, especially to increase effectiveness, efficiency, and productivity. It involves of various demands upon a person relating to work, social life, family, hobbies, personal interests. Time management may be aided by a range of skills, tools, and techniques used to manage time when accomplishing specific tasks, projects, and goals, complying with a due date and commitments with the finite nature of time. Main topics related to time management: creating an environment conducive to effectiveness in terms of cost benefit, quality of results, and time to complete tasks of project. Setting of priorities, the related process of reduction of time spent on non-priorities. Implementation of goals. We have a different cultural views of time management. Time perception is the way people feel, experience, and evaluate time. Time orientation is derived from cultural, and this orientation is reflected in the language used to describe time. Different cultures have different perceptions of time and may value different aspects of it. In particular, cultures have been identified as having relatively more concern for time past, time present, or future time. In the African language of Shambhala, there are no words for past or future. There is only today and not today. Western cultures, including some parts of East Asia, such as Japan, tend to measure their time by the clock. According to their understanding, each activity should have a precise beginning and end. On the other hand, measuring time in Eastern countries is event or personality related. That is to say, they don't let time interfere with their judgment. They will gladly prolong the meeting or schedule it for the next day if participants have family-related obligations. Each activity or event should have a natural beginning and end. The way we look at the different eras in time also reflects our time understanding. There is refers to as time orientation. For example, nations with a long history that survived wars, had past achievements, or lived in monarchies hold on to the past more than nations with a relatively short history. Therefore, certain cultures are past, present, or future-oriented. Note the more detailed descriptions of each orientation. Past-oriented countries. These countries don't have long-term perspectives and avoid risking by introducing changes. Italy is an ideal example of a past-oriented country. Italians are known for their exquisite craftsmanship and artistic history. They stick to their past achievements and obtain new ones relying on the knowledge of their ancestor. Moreover, Britain and China are past-oriented since they have a long history too. Like the Italians, they are proud of their past achievements and live their lives respecting their traditions and beliefs. Interestingly, even though the Chinese are traditional and past-oriented, they do have a long-term perspective. They cherish their traditions yet carefully pave the way for the future of their heirs. Present-oriented cultures include the majority of Latin American and African countries. For them, what happens in the past should stay there. What's more, they are laying back about future events. They give little attention to such events since they consider them uncertain and unknown. Therefore, these cultures rely on immediate results and tend not to have detailed plans for the future. Logically, we can come to the conclusion that cultures that live their lives by the clock are future-oriented. The USA is such an example, for example. They live in the present to the fullest, but are oriented towards future events. This may have to do with the fact that they are a relatively young country, at least compared to European countries. Besides, they are known to be thorough planners. They thoroughly plan their vacations, meetings, and important events beforehand. Time waste is simply an unwanted concept. Time management is paying attention to how you are spending your most valuable resource, time, and devising a plan to use it more effectively. Today's lecture have a practical part, so we have some goals for today. Access or examine how you are currently allocating your time. Understand the importance of managing your time and understand different strategies on how to use your time efficiently. The first we have to talk about is a goal setting. In order to know what you should be doing with your time, it's important to know what are you working towards. Long-term goals is a lifelong goals. Usually it takes a year or more to accomplish, and short-term goals are stepping stones, and it takes less than a year to accomplish. Make a next exercise, think about your long-term goals and think about short-term goals. But when you are formulating a goal, use a goal-setting rule from the SMART methodology. Your goals should be specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-bound. What does mean specific? The correct formulation of a specific goal is the next. Set real numbers with real deadlines. And wrong position, say, I want more visitors. Measurable goal. Make sure your goal is trackable and don't hide behind buzzwords like brand engagement or social influence. Attainable goal. Work toward a goal that is challenging but possible. Don't try to take over the world in one night. How to do a realistic goal. Be honest with yourself. You know what you and your team are capable of. And don't forget any hurdles you may have to overcome. Time-bound goal. Give yourself a deadline. And don't keep pushing towards a goal you might hit someday. So it will help you to make a plan and the stepping stones for your great goal and to avoid the next situation. The plan, to be sure, was excellent, simple and clear. It's better not to come up with. He had only one drawback. It was completely unknown how to bring it into execution. So take a time, make a stop of this lecture and think about your goal settings. Write a short-term and long-term goal. Your short-term goal should be a stepping stone on the path to achieving your long-term goal. And make sure both goals are specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-bound. The next step you have to do to think about where does the time go. Make the next exercise, make a list of 10-15 observable activities you have participated in during the past 24 hours and estimate how much time you spent on each activity. It sounds very simple, but I'm sure you would be wondering where is your time go? And if you are interested where is your time go during your education, take a period of your education time. If you're wondering where time go during your vacation, use the vacation period for assessment. You can think not about only 24 hours. You can take a week to understand your usual activity and your usual time wasting. It's all connected, goal setting and time management. If your goal is to increase your GPA, you will need to be well organized to allocate sufficient time for study or visit your professor's office hours. Knowing ahead of time what your main priorities are can help you attend to those tasks first. Are you allocating the necessary time in achieving the short-term and long-term goals you set earlier? Make a pause and think about it. So, short summarizing, why is time management important? It helps you to prioritize your tasks, accomplish short-term and long-term goals, increases productivity, experience the success of accomplishment, fulfillment, feeling of self-control, balance, aids in life management, reduces stress, prepares you for real world if we are talking about the students. The next the next point, consider your values. You will put more time and energy toward what you value, enjoy and love. How much do you value your education? How important is it that you succeed in education and get your degree. If success in education is a high value for your life, you will make more time for your studies, your classes, and projects. We all spend time on what we value. Don't forget about it. So, what is time management? Now, just about managing your time, it's about managing your attention. Attention management is the ability to focus on a designated activity. Without attention management, time management is pointless. To manage your time, you must manage yourself, your energy, your behavior, your attitudes, you. Once you know how to manage all that, managing your time begins to work. There is no one-size-fits-all approach. Everyone must figure out how to stay on top of things. You need to think about your straightness and challenges when learning about managing time and energy and ultimately about yourself. For some people, life could be as a series of screens. Some person can wake up and the first he or she can see is a phone, is a cell screen, Samsung or iPhone. Then it's time for work or education, and the screen could be a screen of a notebook the whole day, and at the end of the day it could be a TV screen. So to avoid this situation, you have management your attention and management your time. But don't forget about the and effectiveness of your doings. For example, students spent 5 hours at the library studying. Didn't exactly mean he was managing his time effectively. In fact, he was not using his time effectively because he would only be productive for about 2 hours. So he spent 3 hours just trying to control his attention, but he was a loser this time. So the next tip for your effectiveness, get your priorities straight. This is a 4-quadrant graph from Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People book. The first quadrant is the tasks that are important and urgent. For example, studying the night before a test. The second quadrant, tasks that are important but not urgent. For example, working on a paper or a project that is not due until the end of the semester. The third quadrant, tasks that are not important but urgent. Agreeing at the last minute to go to a movie with friends. And the fourth quadrant, tasks that are not important and not urgent. For example, watching TV for 5 hours. So priorities are very personal and can be different for each individual. Make this exercise, take this quadrant and write down your goals into these 4 quadrants. And write down your time activities. What are you doing during your last 24 hours or a week? And write each activity from the list of observable activities into the appropriate quadrant in your graph. Using the time estimates you wrote for each activity, circle the quadrant in which you spent the most time. Remember that priorities are very, very personal. For example, sleep may be quadrant 4 for one person and the quadrant 1 for another. and answer the question, in which quadrant did you spend the majority of your time? Which quadrant is the best for your goals? For example, if you are getting an education, if you are studying, which quadrant is the best for you? The first one or the second one, maybe third, and I'm sure you are. It's obviously that's not fourth quadrant. And think about the differences in your life, about the changing in your life that could be if you spend the majority of your time in the first quadrant activities or in the second quadrant activities and so on. Performance, health, and happiness are grounded the skillful management of energy. Don't forget about it. And let's talk how to use time wisely. Here are some general tips. Electronic or hard copy day planner or calendar you have to use. Schedule fixed blocks of time first. Start with class time for students, work schedule for workers, childcare for mothers and young families. Schedule due and due dates, work backwards, use syllabus. Schedule study time every day at least 2 hours. If you have breaks between your classes, use it. Some classes require more study time than others. 10-minute study breaks after studying 4 hours you have to do. And remember that the other types of activity should be around the main blocks of your schedule. Be realistic about how much time you take for such function, such block. And then set aside time for the day-to-day tasks that will bring you a step closer to reaching your goals. Update your schedule every day, maybe not every day, once a week, for example. Break larger assignments into smaller tasks. For example, final term papers you can do from the small tasks. And avoid scheduling marathon study sessions. 3-hour sessions are more productive than 9-10-hour sessions. You have to know the limits of your attention, of your concentration, of your productivity. Very, very good. Schedule time to study for tests and to review notes. Set a regular place to study and a specific subject. Schedule time for errands. Plan for the unplanned. Leave the blocks for unplanned activities. Double your time estimates. Tasks can take longer than expected. And take time for you. Don't forget about it. Don't forget yourself and your needs, sleeping, nutrition, exercise, and so on. How to use time wisely? Set priorities. Be realistic. Allow for flexibility in your schedule. Schedule time for fun. And the final step is to act on the schedule you wrote down. It's a most hard part of your time management. So that's why when you say I don't have time, what you are really saying is I have other priorities. Remember about it, and everybody around you knows about it. Short summary. Managing time leads to the balance of your life and work, of your life and your study. allows you to put energy toward things you value and economy the energy if it's not your value. It helps you to observe your short-term and long-term goals and achieve it. And time management reduces stress. Performance, health, and happiness are grounded in the skillful management of energy. Don't forget about it. So, and at the end of the lecture, I want to give you an advice to read books or see video of, for example, Brian Tracy. Brian Tracy is not a scientist. He is not a scientific psychologist, but he is a very popular motivation public speaker with a lot of tips and suggestions about time management. Time management is a very practical discipline, and you can use the tips from Brian Tracy to try in your own life. If it works, that's great, take it. If it doesn't work for you, don't worry, it's just not your tip. Use something other tip. Looking for something else. Brian Tracy is not the best motivational public speaker. He is one of. So you can find another person that can give you interesting advices that works in your own life. That's all what I want to say you in lecture about time management. The other information we will discuss during our practical classes. And I want to remind you that a turtle makes progress when it sticks its neck out. Thank you for your attention. See you later in our last lecture or in our practical classes. Bye-bye.